It is time for the Midlife Hockey Crisis Beer League podcast, brought to you by WinningSynthetics.com, your one-stop for all things Amsoil, and thehockeyarsenal.com. Now, here are your hosts, TJ Hollingsworth and Dangling Dave Dickerson. Take it away, boys.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another exciting, action-packed, fun-filled episode of Midlife Hockey Crisis, the Beer League podcast. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Kelly. My name is TJ Hollingsworth, your host, and I am joined by always the man, the myth, the legend, the dangler, Dave Dickerson. Dave, what's up, my man?
What up, man? I'm just sitting in my garage and not playing. How about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat, too. Played last night, and now the world's kind of come crashing down. Let me do a little disclaimer here real quick, because we're going to talk about some stuff, and we're probably only going to bring this part of it up one time for what I think are obvious reasons. Here's the bottom line. Look, there are no shortages of places online, on the internet, newspapers, on over-the-air television, where you can get information about how to protect yourself from the coronavirus. So, since I'm not qualified to tell you how, Dave, I don't think you're qualified either. Is that correct?
No. Yep. No, you're
okay.
right. No.
Since neither one of us are qualified to tell you about how to stay healthy and safe with the coronavirus, we're not going to talk about that here on the podcast. Everybody else and their brothers talking about it. There's no shortage of places to get information, and we've decided that with this podcast, we're going to try and provide everybody some relief or distraction from all that's going on. It's absolutely serious. It's absolutely important that you follow all the precautions that are being laid out by healthcare professionals, and we certainly encourage everyone to do that. However, I think most of the country, Dave, is in the same situation you are. It's Monday afternoon here in Indianapolis, and it was just in the last couple of hours, the places you and I play have pulled the plug. The governor of Indiana said, okay, let's just shut everything down where groups of people of 50 or more gathering, nightclubs, restaurants, all that. So our season is on suspension, I guess, for lack of a better term. You were supposed to play tonight, right?
Yeah, I was supposed to play tonight and Wednesday, and they canceled at 6:00. So I got to stick a puck in today.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, that was I knew it was going to happen. So at 6:00, they're shutting down the facility that I went to. The other facility, I believe, they shut down last night. I think after your games.
Yeah, right? I think that's exactly what happened. I played 2 D-League games last night. I played in our game. And again, the jealousy stick came through. I got 2 goals in our game, and then in the next game got another one. Awesome. I'm telling you what, that stick is just absolutely amazing, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, when it was all finished up, we had a physician who plays in one of the leagues came out and talked to everybody and just kind of gave everybody a heads up of what's probably coming down the pike. And sure enough, it happened this morning. So right now, we don't know when we're going to be able to get back on the ice. One of our leagues had wrapped up. Our midweek league had just wrapped up. You and I played against each other last Wednesday, and we're going to talk about that here in a second.
Right.
But there's no stick and puck. There's no practice. There's no nothing for a little while. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to try to provide you with a distraction from all that, because it may be days, weeks, months, whatever. What is that? It sounds like you have maracas going.
Oh, I don't know. Let's keep it.
Leave it in there. Why not? I don't know how to take it out anyway. So, but we don't know when we're going to be able to get back on the ice. So we're going to talk hockey, keep everybody enthused and motivated about it. And who knows, maybe we can find some silver lining in this downtime, and we can talk about today how some things you can do to improve your game while you can't get to the ice. So again, no coronavirus stuff. Plenty other places for that. We're going to stick with hockey. As I mentioned here, Dave, before we get in our conversation, I'm doing a little experiment right now. We're on Facebook Live over on our page over there, Midlife Hockey Crisis. I think it's facebook.com/Midlife Hockey Crisis. And make sure you follow us there and on Instagram, same name, at Midlife Hockey Crisis. You can also jump over on our YouTube. All of our podcasts, Dave, are automatically placed on YouTube. I haven't got in there and put tags or anything on it to help people find it. If you just search Midlife Hockey Crisis, it'll come up. But there's also some videos we've made on there, some information on the hockey arsenal. This is before we got the jealousy stick. But there's a lot of stuff on there, and I think we're going to take this opportunity to kind of start increasing our presence there on YouTube as well. So that's where we're at. Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't, man. I'm just sitting here, just sitting in my own sadness. But you know what? We'll get through it. I mean, we do have some topics, some things to help, but
total first world problems. I'm all right. I'm all right with that.
Yeah, right. We can't get on the ice.
We can't get on the ice, but that doesn't mean we can't work on our game. So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, Dave, you are currently going through the education process. You're in school to become a physical therapist. So this will work out because a lot of the stuff I think we're going to bring up today is going to be right in your wheelhouse. So I definitely want to tap into your knowledge and some of that money you're spending on that education, if that's okay.
Right. All the money. Yeah.
So great. Let's go ahead. I'm going to start first with something we kind of touched on here briefly, and I want you to get in some detail. But as we get older, all right, I'm 52 years old. Dave, you're going to be in the 50 club here before too long.
Eventually,
for too much longer. One of the things that begins to go as we start to sit behind desks or we start doing jobs where there's a lot of repetitive motion is we begin to lose flexibility. It's like it starts probably in the lower body just as quickly as the upper body. But when it comes time to jump out on the ice, that flexibility is something that's going to not only make you a better player, but it's also going to keep you from getting injured. Just a couple things off the top of your head, Dave. What are some issues you see, later in life players facing, and what are some things they can do to prevent that or to kind of reverse some of that loss of range of motion process?
Well, that's just it. It's flexibility and range of motion are two of the things that go first. I mean, obviously, I'm getting texts left and right about this. Obviously, those are massive things that contribute to the game. Also, one thing we're actually talking about it now in class is, your reaction time.
Right.
So your reaction time slows. Your nerves they slow down with you, and overall the best thing that you can do, I mean, it's pretty simple, is just stay active. That's one thing that we're going to talk about today is just as long as you stay active, I mean, that's one of the number one things that can keep your flexibility, range of motion, visual acuity, your reaction time, your lung capacity even, and aspects of your cardio game. But overall, just staying active. And that's one thing that now, it's more important than ever, especially with who knows how long we're going to be on a break here. Right.
When it comes to flexibility, probably one of the first things I noticed when I started playing is the importance of hip flexors, and more importantly, how quickly those go away. And for just to kind of explain to everybody what your hip flexors, where are they, what do they do, and then what are some things folks can do to kind of get those stretched back out and get those loosened back up.
I won't get too medical, because we're the lay person. Basically, your butt, lower back, inside of your hips, and then everything attached to it. I mean, those are the things that the way that we skate, the way that we move, those are empirical. It is, as far as your center of gravity, it's right there, just above your belt line in the back.
And I mean, your hip flexors, they play a huge role in you being able to lift your knee up, right?
Right. And then keeping that flexibility, keeping that motion, that's key for, I mean, anything from playing hockey on the defensive end to walking up the stairs.
Right. And I'll tell you, it goes back to my days when I was working at the Harley-Davidson dealership. I would have some of these guys come in, and, they were in their, mid-40s and up, and they could not lift their leg up over their motorcycle to climb on it. They had to lift their leg up. You'd see reach down, grab their pant leg to pull their knee up, and that just comes from a loss of range of motion in the hip flexors, and that just used to baffle me how that happens. But when you're a kid, you're running, or at least kids when we were kids, you were running all the time, riding your bike, you're doing all these things, keeping all those leg muscles moving, and then all of a sudden adulting hits and you're sitting behind a desk maybe, or you spend a lot of time standing in front of a machine, operating your machine or whatever, and suddenly you don't do these activities. And before you notice, suddenly you can't lift your knees up anymore over your waist or things of that nature. And in hockey, hey, that's skating, is you pumping those legs side to side, if you're doing it right, and getting down the ice. And when those hip flexors are gone, you kind of lose your ability to create any power.
Right. And, when you go to bed at night or you sit on the couch and then that tightness when you get up, those are all little pieces of that puzzle.
What are some things? What are some things? Some stretches, or what are some resources people can use to figure out, how they can begin to start training those muscle groups again?
Dude, one of the things, and I just found it online. I mean, I'm trying to cross-reference hockey to some of my classes, but I have found something online, and I absolutely love it. I started doing it at my home a couple of weeks ago. It's a simple website or a simple YouTube. It's called Hockey Training, and every single everything on there. And of all the things that I've watched, they're barely on the ice. There's other things for that, but it's a couple of guys. One guy's a strength coach, and he'll get in and he'll talk. He doesn't talk too deep, like, the psoas muscle. He'll like the muscle inside of your hip. There's a zillion things on there to show you how to stretch. Obviously how to keep your game going, but also tips on how to improve your game on certain aspects of it.
Well, I mean, the importance of flexibility. Again, not to beat a dead horse here, but I was on a breakaway last night and had a defender that was on playing a good position on the inside. So I decided, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick stop and try and get them to do a flyby. And what I did, I did not stop hard enough for as fast as I was skating, and I took a tumble. I landed like a pretzel. When I hit, I could feel the vertebrae of my spine pop, like I'd been at the chiropractor, and went down on my hip. Got up, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be kind of painful. But I was pleasantly surprised that other than just a little bit of discomfort when I got home, I was able to finish the game just fine. In fact, I went on and scored after that. But I was fine. Just the slightest bit of discomfort, kind of like if you sleep kind of all cattywampus and you wake up with a little bit of a stiff back. That's all I had out of that this morning, and I've got to believe it plays into the fact that I've started doing some I'm a YouTube guy. Everybody knows that listens to the show. Found some yoga, some basic yoga for hockey stretching, and I think that went a long way in why I was able to take such a hard fall, and that was 2 of them this week, by the way. And not really suffer too much over it.
Yoga is fantastic. I did it when I was a runner, and that's the only reason why I think that I could sustain my running for another 10 years.
Right.
A lot of things release when you're doing it properly, but yoga releases a lot of that tension. Especially, it's a mental thing too. Mm-hmm. So mentally you're cleansing yourself. But as far as that goes, the stretching and the just the mobility and the moving your muscles. We play a very violent and aggressive sport, and if your muscles and everything else isn't in check, you're not going to play to the best of your ability.
Right. Well, cool. Well, and again, I reference YouTube is a great place to find. You just type in hockey yoga, and there'll be literally thousands of videos that come up. I just happened to pick one that was about a 30-minute workout, and if I can't do all of it, I try to do aspects of it at some point during the day, and it's been great. If you are a wrestling fan, if you're like me and had kids that were glued to the TV on Thursday night when WCW was having their big run in the 90s, Diamond Dallas Page has created a yoga program called DDP Yoga. It's an app you can download. It's got an accountability thing into it. But if you watch, there's a great show that's called The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. Guy, without getting too deep in the weeds here, the guy went through some substance abuse issues and body was falling apart. And Dallas Page reached out to him, and they did this entire documentary about how they got him back into shape and back healthy, and a lot of it was featuring this DDP yoga. There's a great episode of the Joe Rogan podcast where DDP's on Diamond Dallas Page. Again, if you think yoga's for women and for sissies, listen to this podcast and watch what this guy does and has been able to do with people. I can't say enough good things about yoga. I only wish I had the opportunity or could create the opportunity to get a little more involved in it, because I think it's one of those things that'll be good for you, not only for hockey but all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think I've seen parts and pieces of that on how DDP turned himself around physically. Right. And then spreading the word. I think maybe you showed me or you talked about it, and you launched me onto watching that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. It's just one of those things that'll pay you dividends down the road. Dave, you mentioned something else there a second ago, and I want to jump back to that because probably the first thing that's going to go, not getting on the ice, is going to be hockey conditioning, the cardio aspect of it. Now, you'd mentioned running a little earlier. Due to some foot problems I've had for many years, I haven't been able to run in probably 15 years. You're a little more current than I am. What is your take? How much benefit can a hockey player get from running? Is that gonna keep it close? Is that just gonna tell everybody what's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the cardio, your lung capacity, and our shifts are super short, but they're
Right.
extremely intense. Whereas running is, I mean, you don't get that intense that quick, but yeah, I mean, I think the lung capacity and your breathing and your oxygen transfer, that all the science stuff behind it, but
Right.
you're just going to feel better. I think if you can sustain some running or even biking, I think biking might be. It might translate a little better too because you're using different sets of muscles,
Right.
And you're crouched down, and that's you got your back is into it. But between the two, yeah, I mean, I think just bottom line is the cardio aspect of it. Especially our shifts, they're lightning quick,
Right.
For most of us, you're out there, you know who you are.
You 5-minute fish. You know who you are.
Like you're out there for a couple minutes. And you're really exerting a lot of cardio. When you sit back on the bench, you're just like gassed. I think that when you're running and swimming too. I mean, swimming would be ridiculously amazing.
Right.
And biking, all the things that they're gonna push the buttons for your cardio. Again, we keep saying jump online, but hockey's so specific that a lot of things transfer over. But as far as the cardio, that I think for me, those are three of the things that help me survive on those shifts.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
going to say that those things are those are the things I'm going to start picking up, especially with our downtime. Is
Right.
I'm looking at my bike now, like I'm going to go out for a bike ride. I'm going to go out for a run, just to upkeep that cardio. Because once you get back on the ice, man, it's going to be your 2-minute shifts. Yeah, you're going to be like 5 seconds.
Well, I'm looking at my stats from the Hockey Tracker app that I use. I'm looking from last night's first game. Average heart rate. Now, this is average over the hour and 10 minutes we were on the ice, so that includes, in between periods and what have you, was 163 beats per minute with a max heart rate of 185. So, I mean, we're way out of aerobic. We're talking anaerobic here. HIIT cardio, high intensity interval training. Dave, tell everybody what that is and how that could benefit.
That's it's kind of the same from everything that I've done with it or worked with it. My buddy Andrew is a personal trainer. This is something he is specific on. So he's got a little station set up, but it's exactly that, almost like a shift.
Right.
Where you really spike up your heart rate, you let it come down. You spike up your heart rate, you let it come down, and then it's not like you're doing the same thing over
Right.
and over. Maybe one's a row, one's a run, one's a box jump. What do you have with that? Do you HIIT training?
Yeah, I do HIIT training. I've been doing it for quite some time, even before I started playing hockey, just because of the fact that in motorsports there's some similarities where your heart rate is up for very high for shorter periods of time. So there's a lot that relates. I mean, you can do it. If I like the idea of combining it with some type of resistance training, not super
Right.
heavy, but like you can do light weights, high reps at a high pace, or even using resistance bands. You can do it that way. If you're really hard up, you don't have any equipment. If you have a treadmill, you sprint for a minute and a half, or you run as fast as you can for a minute and a half, then you walk for a minute. Repeat that cycle. Or there's always the dreaded burpees.
Burpees are the worst. So there's two things that I want to say it's performance training in Chicago. That's where we did some of this HIIT training. There's also accelerated. I don't mean to give them a shout out, but because they're sadists, they're horrible humans to put us through what they did. But anyway, they had. I mean, we did the burpees, we did resistance band, we did a lot of weights, and it's cool because stuff like that, they show you how to do it properly,
Right.
not just go to the gym and do it on your own. But one of the things they had as part of their training was, and this is the dreaded thing we did, was a manual treadmill.
Oh, brutal.
I feel like we could close all the prisons and put prisoners on the manual treadmill. That's instant rehab.
Put that on TV. Just so this is what's coming if you step out of line, folks. And
it is the most miserable thing. And you talk about spiking your heart rate.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
there's chuck buckets that are around because sometimes it doesn't work. But like the burpees and the suicides and the resistance stuff. But that when Accelerated did that to us, that was the epitome of the HIIT training. That was a nightmare, man. So if anybody's on or has access to a treadmill such as that, run. Just literally run away.
Well, and
Dang,
of course,
man, it was awful.
so staying flexible, working on your cardio. Let's talk about real quick. We got about 3 minutes. What you can do for your game now. Assuming if you play, you have a hockey stick, and good chance you have either a Swedish ball or a wooden ball, a golf ball, or if you're really ate up, you have a green biscuit. Dave, have you ever played with anybody that did not need to practice their stick handling?
No,
Yeah, me
especially in
either.
our leagues. No, even Sidney Crosby, folks
Oh,
like
my-
that, and Connor McDavid, they need to practice.
All the time.
Yeah, there's plenty of tools out there. The Green Biscuit's great. I use some of the practice balls in my garage.
I like
try
those.
to dink. Yeah, there's different weights. There's different thermometers. Is that what it is? How
Hardness?
hard
Yeah.
they are.
Yep, sure.
Which is wonderful. Yeah, you can really work on stick handling and movement with those.
If you have the space, if you've got a basement or you have a garage, this is something that I plan on doing. Jordy Trottier, who has been a guest on here, hit me up with this. He said, he goes, just you do this on your feet, in your tennis shoes. You set up, depending on how much room you have, a lawn chair or 2 lawn chairs, and just practice dangling around those. I was like,
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
There's some online videos like that.
Yeah,
That's
super
a great
easy.
idea.
But
Yeah,
imagine being able to go back now. We take a, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 week break, whatever it is. All of a sudden we come back to the ice, and all of a sudden you're skating up the ice like a dangling machine, and everybody's everybody's screaming at you to move up. So I mean,
Right.
this you could take advantage of this time. You could either sit around and do nothing, or not only stay active, but take this time to do some of the things maybe that you've talked yourself. Oh, I don't have time to do that because I play too much or whatever. Take advantage of this time. Make yourself a better hockey player. Take your mind off everything that's going on around you, too. Let's be real. The more negativity you have pulled into your brain, the harder it is for you to keep your attitude and stay in a good mood. I mean, that
Right.
just is what it is.
Right. And one other thing is consider your diet, too, because,
Oh.
we're eating pretty crappy, drinking beer, and then we still have, skate and run. But, man, if everybody's taking a break and you're still shoveling in the powder donuts and Coors Lights, I mean, good for you, but getting back out there, you're going to wreck everything. But cardio, and weight training of muscles.
Can't go wrong.
No.
All right. Dave, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Folks, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out our brand new sponsor, Cambox USA. Those are the folks that make that killer camera that you've seen me post some videos for. They weren't designed for hockey helmets. They're actually designed for motorsports helmets. So still working on a few tweaks, but every time I take that thing out, I'm getting better and better footage. And as soon as I've got it to where I think it needs to be, we'll start posting more and more of that as we go along. Check them out, Cambox USA. That's CAMBOX USA. Promo code midlife. Get yourself a nice discount. Get yourself 5% off, guys. And you can combine that with any other offer they're doing. You can't go wrong. Folks, that is going to wrap it up for this episode. For the Dangler, for myself, just let me say, Kelly, take it away.
You have been listening to the Midlife Hockey Crisis podcast. We'll see you next period.